Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another insightful episode of the Digital Options Show, your go to podcast for inspiring stories of execution and growth. In this episode, we delve deep into the transformative power of L&D in reshaping today's dynamic workplace. We will be talking about a very special topic which I guarantee our listeners will love. It's ditching the guesswork with data-driven L&D. I mean, who wouldn't want to know some secret sauce for the success when it comes to data, especially in the context of L&D? And to discuss this, we have not one but two great minds with a remarkable history of execution and success in their career. I would like to introduce our guests who stand at the forefront of L&D landscape, ready to share their knowledge and experience with us. Our first panelist is Vivian Blade. She's among the top 100 HR influencer with over 15 years of experience as an independent consultant, author, speaker, and executive coach. Vivian specializes in leadership development and organizational growth. Her background includes impactful roles such as Lean, Six Sigma, Master Black Belt at General Electric, and training leadership at Norton Healthcare, and much more. Vivian is also an adjunct faculty member at the University of Louisville College of Business. She has authored several influential books, including the bestseller Resilience Ready, The Leader's Guide to Thriving Through Unrelenting Crisis. Alongside Vivian, we are pleased to welcome Jimmy Nelson, an experienced executive learning and organizational development leader. Jimmy currently serves as learning organizational development consultant at Nelson Training and Development and has held successful leadership roles at Ingram Content, Norton Healthcare, Babcock Power, and many more. Throughout his career, Jimmy has excelled in implementing transformative learning strategies and organizational frameworks that enhance performance and employee engagement. His passion lies in driving improvements in organizational and leadership capability. We all know that data analytics has transformed the way we understand and improve learning outcomes. So the question is, what KPIs do you find most effective when it comes to measuring and optimizing the impact of L&D initiatives? And how exactly do you use data analytics to identify performance gaps?
This is a great question because in today's environment where learning has changed, a lot, and in some aspects, especially with so much online learning, we have different kinds of data and lots of data available to us. But I want to go back to really, as you think about how you optimize, I think that's one of the optimal questions here first. Because as we think about how do we optimize training, how do we optimize learning and development, it goes back to what are the goals of the organization? What's important for the organization? What's important for the team, that individuals, where their roles are, and what's important for their individual roles. And doing a good needs analysis, and we'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, but as you understand what the true needs are based around, I think, those three elements, it helps you to understand what kind of data do we need to look at. And, common types of, KPIs are things like, of course, every organization wants to move and their revenue, or even if you're a nonprofit, still generating what is it I'm called to do? What's our mission? What's our vision? How are we generating funds for the nonprofit or for the for-profit business? And so these are high level overarching, levels that are frankly more difficult to get a direct connection to, but still things that you want to look at an organizational level. Customer retention. Employee retention and turnover. Those are areas, especially the spaces that Jimmy and I work on a lot, related to leadership. How are we making sure that we are creating the kind of environment that is sticky for our employees, a place where people want to be? So engagement surveys, 360s, those are all types of things that I think we look at. And then when it comes to an individual level, you have to understand, and we do this a lot in coaching, what's the role? What are the expectations of the role? What are the KPIs for the role? And the balance is between your technical skills and the technical outcomes. But again, a lot of it comes down to what are the people side of it. And even if I'm not a leader, how I engage in the organization, how I work together with my team, How do I support my team members, the kind of working relationships I have? All of those elements are also important no matter what role you have and no matter what role learning and development is touching. So I think those are some broad areas that you have to think about. And then again, as you think about specific roles, if you're talking about technical skills, that's a lot easier to measure sometimes in terms of application, or is the person performing the job and the role from a technical aspect as they are supposed to. Safety is another area, that often comes up when we look at manufacturing, which is an environment I came out of with GE, for example. So, those technical sides of things, and then tougher on the soft skill side, but those are some things that I think are important to look at. And I'll let Jimmy add some of his thoughts to this
Yeah.
question.
And to add on to what Vivian said, one of the issues I think that a lot of learning and development people have in organizations is everything else in the organization is run by KPIs. They look at bottom line, they look at turnover, they look at, profitability, they look at sales. All of those things are KPI. And it seems like we're kind of behind the curve when it comes to that, because some organizations don't even do that to begin with. So they don't even have learning KPIs built into their system. So one of the first things I often suggest when we're talking about data and using data appropriately is to create some of those learning and development KPIs so that the executive teams are looking at them as part of running the business. We can impact everything talked about, but we need to make sure that we're looking at learning and development as well as a KPI. I know that I recently read a report that said only 33% of the people do level 1 and level 2 evaluations. And if you think about that, that means that more than 60% of the learning and development people out there aren't even doing the basics in data analysis, not even the basics of discovering what the students need and where to go. And I agree with Vivian completely when it comes to, I want to know before I start a training class, what's the expected outcome? What do we want these people to do differently or the same or new behavior before I ever start the class? Because I can't teach to the, hey, I need you to be a better leader, because that means different things to different people. And so having that upfront information saying, this is what we need out of this particular event, coaching, training, whatever it is, and saying, okay, I'm going to build what I'm going to be making on that particular outcome. And then I'm going to go further and say, what other data can I collect during the class, after the class, 6 months after the class, that says, wow, look how great this was. I even do personally ROI. And yeah, no, it's not an exact science, but neither is most of the other KPIs. Most of that stuff lags behind a month, and so they're looking at data that's really not accurate. So I'm gonna put myself in that data realm and say, look, here's what's important as well, and make sure that the C-suite folks, the executive folks, that buy into that and say, yes, we're going to monitor that KPI just like we do bottom line, just like we do customer turnover, employee turnover, all those kinds of things.
Those were some amazing insights from Jimmy and Vivian. In the next segment, we will talk about maximizing productivity through learning in the flow of work. I'm delighted to introduce our next two distinguished guests in this panel. Joining us today is Andrew Jacobs, who's the CEO of Larn Learning Services. He's a distinguished L&D professional with over 25 years of experience in the learning field and is determined to improve the quality of effective workplace learning. He brings to the table immense expertise in people and team management, learning strategy, learning design, coaching, and mentoring, to name a few of his specialties. Alongside Andrew, we have the pleasure of welcoming Fran Harrison, a learning technology strategist at QA Limited. Fran is a seasoned professional with a wealth of expertise in facilitating lifelong learning across various stages of life. With a background encompassing diverse fields such as learning technology, diversity and inclusion, project management, and leadership development, Fran brings a unique perspective to this discussion. I would like to ask the both of you, how do you identify real time learning opportunities within employees' daily tasks, and how do you translate these insights into actionable improvements, and what strategies do you use to address these skill gaps?
So I apply something, and I suggest people apply something to how they're approaching their learning, and that's the 3 A's.
Mhm.
So we want to identify, why does someone need to know something? And they need to know it for one of 3 A's. The first A is about awareness. They know something, but they've forgotten it.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we do in learning development is just about raising awareness. So you used to do that thing, let's show you how it's done again. We'll raise awareness of it, and a lot of L&D could be met through just doing awareness, and that's at the point of need in the chain of work. Oh, how do I do this? Click, plays me a GIF that shows me how to do the thing. Done. There we go. The second A, which we fall into in learning development too much, is acquisition. We assume people want to know everything. And the example I use about this is crossing the road. If I'm going to cross the road and I can see a BMW 7 Series coming down the road, I don't need to know how the braking system in a BMW 7 Series works. But in learning development, we build e-learning modules that teach people how to cross the road. And by the way, this is the braking system of a BMW 7 Series, because you might need to know that. And we oversupply stuff that we think people might need to know. Most people don't need that. Most people need the third A, which is application, the opportunity to practice and try things out in the workplace in a safe way, which is tied in with that capacity piece. So giving people space to do things and learn things and apply the things they've already learned, their knowledge and their understanding and their awareness, into doing the job.
I think that's probably what we call just enough and just in time. And it's so hard to get the balance exactly right. But I mean, it's a sliding scale. But yes, don't deliver the training on something you're going to do in 6 months' time in full and then leave it. Deliver it nearer the time. Maybe do drip feed and do reminders, and it's that constant application to make sure it's sticky learning. It sticks around.
The favourite example is managing sickness absence. Every organisation does managing sickness absence training. All the managers are trained in how to manage sickness absence. But it doesn't make any difference to sickness absence in organisations, because the sickness absence stays exactly as it is. What we can, could and should be doing is going, well, which functions need more help? How do we give them the help that they need? Do managers need to practice dealing with particular issues? Is there a particular sector that's having a particular problem within our organisation? And spend time focusing on the data behind it to then decide, is it awareness, just raising people's awareness? Is it because they don't know, acquisition, or do they just need a chance to practice, which is application?
I think I'd probably add to that as well. Yeah, system's bad. There may be some processes in place that are just disengaging people, so they feel they need time out sometimes. Back to that thing of what is the problem? And I love, is it Sakichi Toyoda who used 5 whys and how? I am the eternal 3-year-old who will ask why time and time again, because it's until you start getting back to the how, you have to ask why. Why is this a problem? Why do you need to address it? And just keep drilling back until you find out what the problem is. And until you've got the absolute core problem, it's really hard to know that you've got the right solution.
But this is where the mindset shift has to happen.
Yeah.
Because if you're asking why and all you're doing coming back to is training, learning, and so on, then you're not asking the right why questions. Because it won't just be about training and learning. It will be about systems and structures and personnel and people and relationships and so on.
As we wrap up this insightful episode, a heartfelt thanks to our guests for their invaluable contributions. Stay tuned as we bring you fresh perspectives every week on the Digital Adoption Show. You can find us on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. We greatly appreciate your support and encourage you to leave a review, comment, or a rating to help us continue delivering valuable content. If you have any questions on the topic, feel free to ask in the comment sections below. Thank you.